Good afternoon, everybody. This is part 2 of the Reapportionment Task Force meeting. The first one happened at 1 o'clock. This is the second meeting where we're going to be discussing Elgin. It is, I'd like to call it to adjournment. It's Tuesday, September 7th, 2021. Could you, clerk, please call the roll?
Ford. Braz.
Here.
Gums. Kenyon.
Here.
Martin. Sanchez.
Sanchez here.
Strathman.
Strathman here.
Shepro.
Shepro here.
Pirog.
Here.
Afif.
Here.
Arnold. Gately.
Here.
Hernandez. Meyer. Pedersen. Rivera. Shelkey.
Here.
Walter.
Quorum?
We have a quorum.
Yes. Yeah. No, we have a quorum. Is there any public comment? I see none in the audience. Is there any online? Seeing none online. This is Madam Chair. As we move forward with this discussion, I would like all of our members who are representative of the Elgin district to come forward as we highlight your maps, to be forthright in your conversation, to make any specific comments that you may have on what this new realignment of your district looks like. It's critical that we give as much detail as possible so we can share that with Josina at this juncture. You'll also then be getting an opportunity to reflect upon that. And because of the timeline, you are going to have until, let me get you the correct date.
Number 13.
You'll be receiving maps later on today. I said by 12 hours. By Monday, that is September 13th at 3:30 p.m. All of your final comments are due to myself as well as to Roger. And we will then send those forward to Josina so that she can make any adjustments so that we are prepared for the September 16th task force meeting, the reapportionment full task force. And then we can take a look at the impact upon what your discussion is of these maps, your district maps, as compared to an alignment with the rest of the county maps. So again, you're just a subset of all 24 members. So with that, I'll be turning our conversation today over to Roger and Josina and Phil, who are here with us today, and they will lead the discussion.
Sure. So this is Roger Fonstock from the County IT Department. Blair, could you let me share a screen real quick? We'll start with the overview of the VRA districts and percentages that were reviewed in the last meeting. I think many of you have already seen these because you're in the other meeting, so I'm not sure how much detail we'll need to get into, but this was a overview of the population and VRA district information. And then from this, we'll turn control over to Josina after we're done describing this so that she can zoom in on some of the districts and borders and explain it in a little bit more detail. So at this time, Josina or Phil, if you want to step in and explain a little bit about what you've seen in the census data.
Thank you, Roger and Madam Chair. So I think most of you may have seen these overall numbers already, that King County over the last decade has really not had much of an overall population shift in terms of total population, only an increase of about 1,000 in the last 10 years. But within that overall population, you have seen shifts within the racial demographics of the county. The Latino population growing by over 10,000, the Asian American population growing by almost 4,000, with a decline of over 20,000 in the white population and a slight decline of about 1,500 in the overall Black population. So that, of course, even though there hasn't been dramatic change overall, there has been significant shifts within the racial demographics of Kane. And go to the next slide, which has implications specifically for the voting rights districts, which is what we're starting with in the process, just like we did about a month ago. So you can see in the Elgin area, compared to the 2019 data, you actually had more Latino growth in the Elgin area. So in addition to the two federal voting rights districts that are 65% Latino, you can also draw what I would call an influence district, which is an additional district that would be 41% Latino, which is significant compared to what we had in the 2019 ACS data. So with that, I'm happy to share my screen and zoom into the Elgin area. We'll start with 17 and 20, which are the federal voting rights districts. And then we can go into 19, which is the influence district. So I'm going to go ahead and I think you have to stop sharing screen in order for me to share.
Yep, I am stopped. Go for it.
Got it.
And we have to make sure, since this is a separate meeting and some of our members who have come on board may have not taken part in the earlier meeting, can you please explain, Josina or Phil, percentage of voting rights, voting age population? Because we see that the Latino districts, and that would be 17 voting rights, I should say, excuse me, 17, 20, and 65 are, or 24 are all at 65%. And then we can see the other highlights of voting age population is 60, 61, and 60. Can you explain briefly what that means?
Yeah, yes,
I can-
Madam Chair. Go ahead.
Oh,
You want me to-
no, go ahead, Phil. I'll share that screen again. And I apologize. Let me, some of them got unhighlighted, I think, in the draft that you guys had.
No, I think we just asked for the three, so don't worry about it. As it relates to 17 and 20 and 24, you'll see that there's about a 4 or 5% difference between what we call the voting age the total population, which is the column of specifically Latinos, which at Elgin 17 is 65%, 19 or 20 is 65%, and Carpentersville is 65%, number 24. You'll see if you go to the right, the other highlighted is 17 is 65% total population and 60% voting age population. And you go to 21 or 20, excuse me, Latino is 65% total population and 61% voting age population, or VAP. And then same thing with Carpentersville, you have a 65% total population and a 60% VAP. I had asked Josina, and it's kind of been a rule of thumb for a couple decades, that you try and hit, if you can, about a 65% total population for Latinos, or 59, 60% for voting age population. We didn't have voting age population when we were drawing in the spring because the ACS is not based on voting age population. So what we have in front of you is 60, 61, and 60% voting age population for this area of the county. We believe that that will be a successful, that what we don't have is citizens voting age population. And your goal is to kind of have a 50% citizens voting age population, or very close. What we don't know is citizenship, because that number comes out after the census and you will not see that number until 2022. So you're drawing this map on the best available data you have, which in this case is voting age population and the population. Citizenship is an estimate based on the ACS survey. I'm seeing in the numbers I look at that citizenship is somewhere about 6 to 8% in most districts, lower. So that Elgin 17, which has a 60% Latino VAP, most likely is somewhere between 50 to 54%, and so on down the line. So we believe all of those will be effective districts because the citizenship will drop them down, but probably right at around 50% at the most. Now, there are certain areas in the state that we're seeing a huge drop, but I don't believe we've seen it in this area. So we think the citizenship number on these will come up somewhere around the 50% number or better. Hence, that's kind of, and the rule of thumb is, as I said earlier, 65 for total pop, 60% for population. And that will usually average out to about a 10% drop historically, 10% between voting age and citizenship. However, we're seeing, at least in this numbers from the preliminary numbers, and we're comparing it to ACS, about a 6% to 8% drop. So we believe these will be pretty solid districts. And honestly, if you got to the point where you were drawing a much stronger, you run the risk of packing. As we've talked about, at some point you get too high, then you're packing districts. If you get too low, you could be seen as what we call cracking. So there's a line in the middle, and I think Josina has threaded it pretty well here.
Thank you. So should we go on to, is there any questions on this? And I do have just a question about the census data. Now, the census data, though we saw some questions occurring in the Aurora area, is the census data felt to be relatively accurate for this Elgin area?
We have not heard anything anecdotally that is a problem. Either way, even if it is slightly inaccurate or there is problems like there may be in Aurora, there's not a lot you can do about it. You have to draw based on the 2020 census numbers. That's what you're required to do. And even if there is some kind of recalculation or new census, that won't be completed in 2021 for sure. Most likely 2023 is the earliest. So you need to be drawing based on what we have at this time, which is census data that Josina used.
Okay, all right. So we're all on the same playing field with the numbers by law. So let's begin. Josina, you want to share us, because we're all seeing this pretty much for the first time.
Got it. Can you all see the screen now?
Yes, Josina.
Yes.
Great. So, like I said, there was actually much more significant Latino density and growth in the Elgin area than the 2019 data had shown. And so we were able, again, to draw two federal voting rights districts, as well as an additional influence district, where we can talk about afterwards, because that one actually is more significant change geographically than the first two. So 20 and 17, you can see that the blue lines are the old districts and the red lines are the new district borders. So you can see it actually is quite similar to the old district boundaries. For the northern district, which is District 20, we shaved off some of this less dense Latino population. So the lighter colors are less dense Latino, the darker is higher percentage Latino. So in order to keep this district 65%, we were able to carve off some of this area just south of the river. For the southern boundary, southern district, District 17, again, because there was so much growth, you can see that aside from this one block here, the southern boundary is the same until you get to the western boundary. And so this chunk here, east of, sorry, I was trying to read that, Alfred Street, west of Alfred Street, doesn't need to be in that district, can go to increase the Latino numbers in a potential influence district to the west. And then the boundary in between the two districts, between 17 and 20, was tweaked a bit from the old boundary just to even out the percentages. This is actually a slightly tweaked version from the one that I sent over to you guys, just to even out the deviations. I wasn't so comfortable with 4 and 2 deviations, so these are now 3 and 3 deviation. But I think maybe we'll start with 20 and talk about the northern boundary, go to 17, talk about the southern and western boundary, and then we can go to the boundary between the two, if that works for folks. So starting with the northern boundary of 20, this is the portion of the district that you would no longer have. Any significant concerns there.
I want to be sure, this is Cheryl Strathman speaking. I want to make sure that I understand the green, it's a green line there that is the new boundary. Is that correct?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, okay.
Are we, I'm sorry,
Uh-oh.
what happened to the blue and the red?
Sorry, it's
Well-
just because I selected it. I can unselect it and it turns back to red. There you go.
Okay, You're
Red
confused.
line is the new boundary.
The red
we
line
go.
is the
Oh,
new
it is.
boundary, because
Yeah,
I had
now it
selected
is.
the
Oh,
district
yeah.
different screen.
Thank you.
Sorry.
You're,
There's the-
you're
there's
confusing
green.
me.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's why I asked. Thank you. Yeah, this is the boundary on the east side of the river. You can call it the south side. It is the southeast side of where I'm talking about with the new boundary. That is an area that was is really my wheelhouse, and that was an area that I'd hoped to keep. That's traditionally been a neighborhood that has been part of the district. And that's why I was fighting for it. And I see that it didn't make it into the new boundaries.
So that is the, just to clarify, that is the.
Right in here, is this what you're
Yeah.
referring to?
Yes,
And, all right, why, Josina, why? Because of getting it into the next district as we go further north? Did you
Well,
have
the
to pull that
reason-
in for population?
Well, as you can see, it's lighter green, which means it's less Latino in terms of population percentage. So to add this area and take off, an equal amount of population off of a more Latino area would drop the Latino percentage. So we can try to tweak some of the boundaries there, but you just try. I hear you, and let me just try.
What's the?
that would be great. That is an area that's many of my most active supporters and some of the most active people in the Elgin area, in the city of Elgin. And I would like to keep that if that's at all possible.
What would have to happen, and this would be a conversation with Miss Allen, is if we added this, we would probably need to grab a little bit more of this densely populated Latino area in here. Keep your percentage within legal standard.
Mr. Shepro?
Josina Kenchepro, what factors did you consider in drawing this map? And did you only look at overall population and voting age Hispanic population?
I looked at the overall population, the Hispanic percentage population, the voting age population. And what I could tell, were largely major boundaries as well as the existing lines. I tried to respect, like you can see this line follows the existing line, trying to keep as much of the core of the district intact.
Because at least down in Aurora, it looked like almost every district has less than a quarter of their original territory.
Well, they had much more significant population changes in Aurora,
pop-
and also
mhm.
because there are 5 districts there, it's like a puzzle. It's a much more complicated puzzle to be able to grab the Latino density in the center of Aurora and then draw out. Where here you see one, it's more spread out evenly, even though there are more dense pockets here, but also it's 2 districts. So it's easier to do a puzzle with 2 pieces and have the outer boundaries be able to change. That's largely why.
And perhaps one other board member shares my curiosity, but what happened to District 22? That's not even shown on here.
Josina, this is Vern Tepe.
Mhm.
I represent District 22.
Now we
And-
know what happened.
And on the original maps that you had drawn, District 22 had virtually minimal changes. This one shows some quite substantial changes to District 22, and you did not draw District 22. I want to share with you that some of that may have been because of my input. I felt that Elgin should stay with Elgin and that the areas on the west should be included. So when will you draw districts like District 22?
So
And
this
be able
pro-
to
oh, sorry.
include them?
So this process is just like it was a month ago, where we started with the ACS data, where we draw the voting rights districts first. So that we make sure that we're meeting federal standards, and then we draw the rest of the districts. That's what I meant by we can talk about District 19 afterwards. Again, it's not a federal voting rights district. I just wanted to show you what it could look like to optimize the Latino population in an additional district. 41%, again, while it does not meet federal voting rights standards, it is a significant community of interest that could be kept together, but it is not required by law. So that would be for discussion as to whether or not you all wanted to try to keep it together. If not, again, the districts would resemble much more the last draft, but I just wanted to show you what it could look like if you wanted to keep that Latino community of interest of nearly 40% of an additional district that was showing growth together. So again, this is just a draft. The core parts of this draft are 20 and 17, because those are the federal voting rights districts. But I was surprised that you could draw a 40% district in addition, and felt like I should at least show it to you all.
Again, this is Tepe. I believe that's very logical, and I have no major problem with it, except when will you draw districts like District 22?
Again, after, oh,
After
sorry, Madam
this.
Chair, go ahead.
Yes, just to confirm, after the voting rights districts have to be done first, and then shortly thereafter, once everyone is happy with the voting rights, everything else will start taking place.
So that being the case, District 19 would still be up in the air.
Yes.
Okay.
If you guys decided that this is not, if you did not, especially if you decided that you did not want to draw the 40% Latino district, then we have a lot more flexibility to keep more of a semblance of the old boundaries between 19 and 22.
Okay. And may I echo some of the comments of Ms. Strathman. Mrs. Strathman, I think it's very appropriate to note the river as more of a guide than specifically what the population looks like. And I think going back to some of Mr. Ford's earlier comments about keeping neighborhoods together, that's a whole area that has always been Elgin, always been an Elgin district. And I think that entire area that is shown to be the east and the south of the river should be put into District 20.
East and south of the, yeah. So, I mean, I think we tried this in the last version of the map when we had the ACS data of drawing an eastern district and a western district instead of kind of the way it is now, which is a northern district and the southern district. In the 2019 data, we didn't have the population density west of the river to do that. We may have that now. So if that is an alternative draft that you would like me to draw, again, that would be a significant change for 17 and 20. That has a northern southern boundary. But if you would like me to try to draw districts that use the river as an east-west boundary between 17 and 20, I could.
Yes, that was some of the input that Mrs. Strathman and I gave associated with this, and we were very consistent with that. I'm sorry it wasn't included.
Yes.
So why don't we, if we can, let's go down, if I made it 17 now, since we're talking about 17 and Ms. Allen is here.
Pardon me,
because-
Miss, Madam Chair, I have a
Yes.
question before we leave 20.
Oh, sure.
Josina, in that area that I'm wondering about the coloration of what you have on the screen. Above where you see where it says Elgin, Illinois, and then you see the street Getha. What is that area? Is that a population area? Because that's largely a park there. So
My
what
guess
is that?
there's residential on the northern side of the street, and that's why it shows population. Because this is just based on percent. These are percentages, not pure numbers. So
Okay,
even if there's
so-
two people there, if one is Latino, it'll show as 50% Latino.
Okay, my question is in that area above that is green, that's not necessarily residential area. That's, is that just showing a park?
No, the green is based off of population. Hold on.
But if the whole area has one Hispanic and nobody
So
else,
This
then
block
it's
right
100%, right?
is this the block that you're referring to, or this one up here?
Oh, yes, well, actually, both of them, but where I see the number 12 more so.
Yeah, so according to census data, there are 12 people that live on this block. There are 357 people who live in this block.
And you mean block of, not necessarily a city block, but a block of
Well,
area?
see these boundaries, these gray lines, that would be the block.
Okay, I just want to make sure I understood.
And then
Okay.
17, is it 17% of those individuals who reside in that area are just, there's number 17 people who reside in that area?
17 people. There's 12 people who reside in this area and 300 and something in this area.
And then through that, if we look at your grid, so we match it's from 5 to 60, 50 to 60% in the darker grid are Hispanic. And then 30 to 40% of the people who live in number 12 block are representative of Hispanic district. Is that correct? Is that a correct reading of that?
Yes. You're talking about the overall population of the district?
Yes.
Yes.
Josina, I think what
They're
she's
both six-
asking is that block that has 12 people in it, it's hard to tell if that's a
What
30 to
percentage is
40 or
that?
40 to 50. Yeah.
Uh,
It's either 30 to 40 or 40 to 50. I'm looking at.
Gotcha. Hold on. I see what you're
But,
asking.
so it would be a percentage of those individuals of the
So
12
of those
people who
12
live there.
people, probably 4 or 5 are Latino,
Okay, okay.
if that helps you. I mean, we're not
Here,
talking.
I can
big
pull up the
numbers.
percentages if you want to see the percentages.
Cheryl, does that help explain?
I'm getting there.
So yeah, that block is 42% Latino. This one is 59% Latino.
There, that helps. Thank you.
Okay,
Mhm.
good, good.
So the request that was just made about drawing an option that uses the this river as an east-west district, based off of where you live, this whole area would be in Miss Allen's district. The area that you were asking to keep in your district. So again, that's where the rub comes of.
No, excuse me, Josina, that, what the request was not to change the boundary, the southern boundary of 20 and the northern boundary of 17. There might be some little tweaks there. What I'm particularly talking about is the northern boundary of 20. And
No,
that,
I understand, but Mr. Tepe just made the request of drawing a version that uses the river as the east-west
Yes,
boundary.
yes,
No,
I
no.
understand, but that was in regards just to District 20. These two districts have always been this way, and there is an east-west portion of the river to both 20 and to 17. That's not what we're talking about, just for
Okay,
clarity.
I took what he said to say, try to draw this as one district and draw this as another district. Is that not
No.
what he was saying? Okay.
No, no.
Mr.
no.
Tempe, would you clarify for?
Yes, I was trying to echo what Mrs. Strathman had said earlier. It's the northern boundary area there.
Yeah, no, I
that's
got that in her comments. I
Okay,
thought you were asking for an east-west district.
no, I was again talking about that small area up there.
And
Because Mrs. Strathman and I had made it very clear that we felt that should change, and I was disappointed that it hadn't been included or considered at all.
Well, I would like to include Miss Allen in the negotiation of this border in order to do that.
Correct. That's what we're
Of course.
just about to go to. But
Of
Mr.
course.
Shepro has a comment.
Yeah, well, I had a question for council. What is the legal significance of a quote, possible Latino influence district? Does it have any?
There's no legal requirement to draw an influence district. I think Josina would agree. Not legally. It may be a policy decision you make, but it's not a legal requirement.
And perhaps it's,
Follow up comment is that we have a deadline of next Monday, And I think, I understand that the voting rights districts have priority, but it seems to me there are enough issues in the surrounding districts that if we don't see what they look like, it's difficult to have a sort of complete picture as to what the questions might be. Especially because 19 has changed so radically in this draft.
Well, that's why we're having this conversation, is to get direction on 19, so that when I draw the full county map, that's with the direction of the board.
And we're going to be talking about 19 today as well.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean, there's not that many
I-
people here.
I wouldn't want to draw a full map based off of this current iteration of 19 without some direction from the board.
Okay. All right. So, Mr. Rathman, you're okay with with your understanding that we are going to now move on to 17, and we're going to review the population along what is that? The the southeastern section of your border. That's right. Southeast.
Yes, of course, I want to include Miss Allen in this discussion, of course.
Okay. So, Miss Allen, your turn.
Just recovering pieces, parts of our technology. Thank you, Madam Chairman. I worked on this as a drill because I understood that the importance here was to respect our Hispanic neighbors and to try and reach a certain population in every district so that they were even with each other. And so when I worked on that, I did 19, 20, 22, 17, and South Elgin 16. And so I got those population numbers pretty close. And I was interested in how the maps that I worked on did in percentages. Is there a protocol by which I can see how close I was able to get? The reason I'm interested in is that I basically took the districts we already had and then smooshed them around to try and get the extra population and to try to honor where our Hispanic population was. Josina, you remember I asked you if you could send me, and you did, those precincts and pieces of precincts with percentages and population numbers. So is there a protocol where I can see how my smushing worked out compared with how you are drawing the districts primarily from the VRA perspective?
And also that, just clarification for myself, sorry for interrupting. The data that you used for your redrawing, what was that based on ACS data? Or is
No, we didn't have census data.
So the numbers were different.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we can't compare, I think for academic exercise to just see how how it lines up. That would be interesting, but we have to use the census data.
Well, can I have the census data so I can see I can overlay that information on what I've got and see where I'm off?
Oh,
That'd be great.
mhm.
Madam
Also-
Chair, Sturgis here.
Yes, Mr. Sturgis.
Is
Okay,
smushing
Mr.
a
Sturgis,
very-
can you just hold on just a second? Let me just confirm. Roger, will you be able to send Deb Miss Allen, the census data for districts? Please confirm which ones you want.
Sure. The four in Elgin and South Elgin, since we impact each other. And just one other thing,
So
On-
that is districts. Can you give the numbers of those districts?
their numbers are, I'll try and do them in order: 16, 17, 19, 20, and 22.
And you're looking for, relative to those districts, what?
The newest data. I would like to,
Based on Which map? Because right now we don't have a 22 in the map that Josina is. I'm sorry.
She wants your current.
So current map, but census population from 2020. So a 2010 district map with 2020 population.
No, I want to see how, I just want the data so I can see how it,
So
I want to overlay it on the maps that I drew.
But which districts are, what you
So
have numbers of districts, right?
we
Are you
can,
talking about, when you say?
I think she
16,
wants the block
17,
level data.
you just want the blocks, all of the blocks for the county?
I don't.
Just
think
for
I-
these districts that she drew.
I'm just saying, either way, it's this, to us,
I
it's
don't
the
think I would
same.
know what to do with anything that small. I'm hoping that there's something.
We need a boundary.
Okay.
So whatever boundary, so when I say a district, just saying, what's the boundary? Is it the city of, the blocks for the city of Elgin, the block data for the city or township?
Can we talk a
Maybe a
little
couple
after
townships.
so we don't have to take, I don't want to take up a lot of
We
time.
could
in
do
the
a couple
meeting.
townships or something
Okay,
like that
okay.
together. That way you see the block, you know.
Elgin Township would do it for her.
Elgin Township is good. And
Elgin
also,
Township then, okay.
Is there somewhere here where we do have the census numbers? As these maps are drawn, how many people are in these districts?
Sure.
Yes, and
She
How
has
come we're
that
here
on
and I
the-
just don't see it?
yeah, how many people are sitting in Miss Allen's district right now? 20, I know 21,500 is the magic number. That's the,
21,141, isn't it? Or 22,141?
it changed because
Oh,
population
okay.
has shifted.
Okay, so now it's,
This is, whatever you did in the past has no reference to what we have right now. Because of that,
what's
because
the
of the
new number?
population. 21,500.
All right, thank you.
Don't, everything you did before, don't. Just put it aside
Sure.
because there was such a huge change because
Sure.
of Aurora. The
Well,
count changed in Aurora.
If you remember, Madam Chairman, my district had the peculiarity that at using the 2011 map, I had 23,500 people. And when we got the ACS data in, it was 21,000. So lost, 2,000 people disappeared.
Elgin
So-
lost 18,000. I
Elgin,
mean, Aurora lost 18,000. My apologies,
Okay.
Aurora.
what happened in Elgin? I'm sorry if I,
And no, not Elgin, Aurora.
Okay.
Aurora lost
how
18,000.
did Elgin do?
That's what we just asked. I think Elgin remained pretty much intact.
I think it's similar,
We're
just
stable, Elgin is stable, not like the others.
Actual number is 21,522.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Yes.
Elgin is divided into 3 high schools. Larkin High School, Elgin High School, South Elgin High.
Elgin.
And anybody west of Randall goes to the central school system. And the river, I think, divides between Elgin and Larkin. And then when I drive up to Debbie's house, there's a different Catholic parish on that side of the river than on the other side. St. Thomas More is over on Highland Avenue. And I think high schools and parishes put people together.
You're speaking like you're from Cook County, Chicago. What parish do you live in?
Yeah, but
It's,
I think,
That's only on the north, on the south side,
Okay.
not the north
but I
side.
think the high schools do because of sports. And South Elgin is,
Mhm.
goes to South Elgin High with a few people outside of it and even some from Bartlett.
Correct.
When you're thinking about keeping people together and not just worried about which country you came from.
Yes, sir.
Based on their athletic skill, you're telling us?
Athletics is important. That's very important.
Would you
comment
identify
throughout the
yourself for the record, please?
Oh.
You haven't. It was Mr. Kenyon's sage comments.
Oh, yeah, Kenyon. But I think that the Catholic parish is another importance.
so
But I'm sure Sheila Our demographer has no knowledge of any of this.
Right.
And Catholic parishes are not considered to be,
Community.
Well, the
Madam Chair.
schools are very important.
yes. Yeah.
So this is Roger again. The one thing that we will have is the shape files from Josina. She's going to send those over. So once we have those boundaries of what is for District 20 or 17 or the ones that are drawn, you can easily look at the population in the GIS system. It's printing or generating something that requires the boundaries. So I can show you the districts that she has drawn, the boundaries, and then I can show you the blocks that are inside of those boundaries so you could see them. We could show you the blocks, inside of the whole township. So at that point, you could maybe understand where the population is coming from better.
How it's
And-
moved around.
Yeah, and that's why I was saying at a township level, you might see, more of the peripheral around the district. You could see what populations are around each district boundary then. So we'll be working on that once we get the shape files from Josina. She's gonna send them today. And then we can also produce either electronic or printed maps of what she provides.
So can we focus on today's conversation on, can we blow up 17 so that Ms. Allen can see it a little bit clearer?
Sure. Just one moment, if you'll humor me, just to try to address some of these issues in real time. So I added the section that Ms. Strathman was talking about to 20. Ms. Strathman, are you okay if I take out the area that's highlighted in red? That would get you with an equal population and at close to 65%.
Yeah, yes, Josina, I see that. I see that. That would work fine with me.
All right, there's your new district.
Okay, that would, and I appreciate you working with me, and that makes a lot of sense to me, this new boundaries.
So
All
does
right,
that go
then we can
into
go to-
19? That
Yeah, so
area
that
that
would-
you just pulled goes into
Yeah.
19?
Mm-hmm.
Good. Mr. Iqbal, are you online?
No, he's not there.
No. Okay.
Madam Chair, this is Jeffrey Meyer, if I may be recognized.
Yes, Mr. Meyer, welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Madam Chair, and I apologize for being a little behind in getting to the meeting today. Josina, I see you've added a little bit now into 19 off of 20, which has, of course, reduced the population in the district to the north of that. And I don't think we can do anything about that at the moment, but in adding these couple blocks over here, Clifton, Melrose, out of 19, now into 19 from 20, then that's now increased a little bit of population in 19. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's still within deviation as it's drawn right now. You can see the line on the right. It's now still within, it's 3.47% overpopulation, so we could trim a block or two, but it's not significant.
May I suggest if it helps and you're trying to balance 19 a little bit as a result of that, if you're looking at adding, is what's to the west here, is that still 22? Is that still Mr. Tepe's district? To the west of 19?
Right now, as it stands, there's no district. We're only drawing the voting rights districts.
Okay.
So it's-
Well,
it's
if you're
just
trying to,
empty
the
area.
only thing I would say, if you're looking to take some out of 19 as a result, okay, thank you. Can you zoom back in a little bit? If you're looking to try to take something out of 19 to balance the numbers, on this little kind of bulge here on the west side of 19, just west of Randall Road, there's a neighborhood there. It's somewhat green. I don't know if you need that for voting rights purposes or not. That's Elmora Heights, which is in that one right there. Yeah, that's correct. That's in precinct 16, which would now be split. And so I don't know if you were trying to balance what you added there in 19, that would be one area where you could shift some population off to the west. Yeah. I don't know if that helps you at all, but that's in precinct 16. So rather than split it, maybe you can keep 16 together.
Done.
Okay. Magical. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And this is actually much more helpful than having, if I read a few paragraphs of your text, I may have gotten there, but that was much easier. So thank you.
Okay. All right, so can we go back to 17 now so Ms. Allen can see what her district looks like?
Yep. All right. So your southern boundary is pretty much, sorry, that little legend is in the way. Your southern boundary is pretty much the same. On the eastern side, on the western side, you've lost this chunk. So any part of that you feel very attached to. I'm sorry. I'm reading it the wrong way. I think I've been staring at this too long. This is a chunk that you've added, not taken away.
The red line is the boundary.
Is the new boundary. So this was your old boundary. This is the new boundary.
Mhm. And the area that's all in white, is that the industrial side?
Yeah, there's basically no population in there. I just followed the line just because I wanted to keep everything as close to intact as of the old district as possible. And then the other changes are in your northern boundary. So you would lose this 5 or 6 blocks right in here. Lose these 4 blocks right in here. As well as these 3 blocks right there. And you would gain these 6 blocks there. So happy to try to tweak that border if there are any issues.
Ms. Allen is looking intently at the map right now. Do you need for us to pull up a closer street view for you?
I think I need to be able to see streets in order to appreciate what's
Is that a little
moving,
bit better?
what's moving around. I just think a little differently. So
If it's helpful, I can blow the streets up a little bit more so they're a little bit more visible. Is that a little bit better?
That's much better.
Oh, yeah, that is much, much better.
Josina is really magical.
So you had referenced in a previous conversation that we had well over a month ago now, that there was a neighborhood that you were concerned about that was drawn out and you wanted to make sure that it was literally a street where you were talked about historic homes and people, young families coming in and restoring that. Is that included in here?
oh, it's scattered throughout.
Scattered throughout, okay.
Absolutely, yeah, sure. I think the biggest thing I was concerned about, Cheryl and I can certainly talk between ourselves about if there's a block here that makes the VRA districts percentages different, if we can take a block here or a block here, that's not a problem. We can work that out.
Absolutely, we can.
Sure.
I would try to trade color for color, if that makes any sense, right? So if you grab a dark green, then you need to lose a dark green.
That's perfect. I was mostly interested in not dipping into South Elgin, so I'm glad to see that gone. Thank you, Josina, for getting rid of that.
Yeah. If you want, if you know how, you can just screenshot this if this is helpful. Because this is probably the best street view you're going to get compared to the files that I'll email over that will be harder to read.
Look at the difference between your map. Where you were before.
So if you know how to screenshot or even just take your phone and take a picture of your screen right now.
I'm walking away from the mic. I'm showing the original map of 17. And that would be the last version we had, 2, 3. And, oh, thank you. I wanted this to not be part of my district. No. Hello, hello. There we go. So just so it's recorded, so we can see that that little foot that came out, the leg and the foot are no longer there. So the South Elgin is now gone.
Yeah, I tried to make her more whole. I try to listen.
So just to confirm, between districts 20 and district 17, if there are any changes, they need to be between Ms. Strathman and Ms. Allen. It's dark green for dark green, lighter green for lighter green. So we have to make sure that you have an accurate printing. So yeah, we don't have any color deviations. A dark green turns into a light green and then vice versa. So
As long
do
as
be
they
very
match,
careful.
even if they're inverse, as long as they match, it's okay.
I just sent you a screen.
And once again, we need,
I just sent you a picture of that.
Ms. Allen, if I can just call your attention to this, we need your changes. And Ms. Strathman's, any suggested changes that you have no later than September 13th, that's Monday, by 3:30,
Next Monday
next Monday,
by 2:30.
3:30.
We'll
2:30 is fine.
camp out in Tom Nikoski's office. We'll bring sandwiches and sleeping bags.
And remember, only 2 of you can be in there at the same time.
So we won't need many sandwiches.
3 people could sleep if they're sleeping simultaneously.
Or at the same time.
Are there any other further conversations regarding 19 or 17 and 20? So we can move on to 19? None?
Thank you.
Okay, let's go to 19 then.
And, again, I know I said it earlier, Phil said it again, this is not a federal voting rights district. This is not required by federal law. You are not under the State Voting Rights Act that would recognize this as an influence district. I think the only piece that would apply to you about the potential of this district, which is on par with many other concepts, is community of interest. That this would be a 40% Latino district. So trying to keep the Latino community as a community of interest together, but that is on par with many other concepts of communities of interest, whether they be parishes, whether they be business corridors, whether they be historic neighborhoods. So this is not on par with the conversation that we were having before about racial percentages. But just wanted to show you what was possible. And get your feedback on whether this was made sense, or if we would split it back similar to the older boundaries and not keep it together in a single district. So totally open.
Did you, sorry,
Madam,
Shepro, question?
Yes, yes.
Madam
Sorry,
Chair?
I'm looking at the original 2-3.
I'll yield to Mr. Tepper.
Mr. Teppi.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Mr. Teppi here. Josina, I think this is a very interesting concept, and I had not considered it, but in some respects, it makes some sense to me. How quickly could you provide us with a map of what you would do with districts 21 and 22 based upon District 19 being proposed this way?
I would do it at the same time as I'm doing the rest of the county, because again, it's all these puzzle pieces. So it would be in relation to districts all the way down to the borders that we agree upon with Aurora. So the timeline that we have right now, I believe, is that you guys would get feedback to me by the end of day Monday. I would try to get a draft to you of the full county along with the updated voting rights districts by Wednesday or Thursday.
Now, my suggestion would be that we suspend any discussion about 19 until we can get those maps and
Uh,
until Mr. Iqbal can be involved.
Uh, As the conversation went, that we would agree upon, tentative agreement upon all borders. So we'd have to agree upon the western border for 19, at least theoretically, so that the maps, other districts can start to be drawn.
Then I would not agree to the western border of 19.
Okay, all right. Okay, thank you.
Comment, Shepro?
Yes, Mr. Shepherd.
Yeah, I think I would have the same view. I just don't know how we can agree to a set of partial borders without seeing the entire picture. Especially as 19, and Mr. Iqbal, I take it, has not been consulted about any of this.
He is not here today.
Here's the telephone and a computer.
So everyone has been invited to attend the meeting.
All right, but this was being worked on before today.
I think Josina is really looking for 17 and 20 borders today, and then she can work on 19. Is that a fair statement? Outside borders, Josina?
I mean, then I would,
I guess the question I think she's asking you on 19 is, would you rather go back to your original concept of how they're drawn, or is this something you would be willing to consider? I think that's the major question Josina has for today on 19. Is that fair,
right,
Josina?
yeah, I think we're good on 17 and 20 for the most part. Yeah, the big question is whether you would want to entertain options of maps that have 19 somewhat similar to what it looks like now. Or if you would like to not do that and go back to something more similar to the last draft that we reviewed about a month ago.
I would suggest, this is Tepe here, I would suggest we go back to the last draft.
New maps.
Madam Chair, Jeffrey Meyer, if I can be heard again.
Yes, of course, Mr. Meyer.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead, please.
I share Mr. Tepe and Mr. Shepherd's sentiments to a degree in terms of wanting to see how this affects other districts in the Elgin area. But I would say a couple of positive things about what you have here, Josina, in terms of a concept and in talking about communities of interest. One thing that kind of always was odd about District 19 under its old format was how it split Gilbert's, it split Elgin. This respects the municipal boundaries of the city of Elgin a whole lot more than the old district did. Everything that's in here, best I can tell, is city of Elgin. It also, to Mr. Kenyon's point in talking about high school districts, this far more closely aligns high school districts. Old 19 was split between, there was part of that I think was maybe even Jacobs territory, some Hampshire High School, and then also Larkin High School territory. Everything in here, I think, would be Larkin High School territory now. Maybe down at the southern end, just north of Bowes Road, some of that might be South Elgin High School, what's in College Green, some of that might be South Elgin High School, but I don't think very much. And so this, I think, actually goes further towards maybe advancing communities of interest for, thinking of the city of Elgin as one territory, or thinking about high school districts, or at least school districts as communities of interest. This map, I think, does, or this concept does that more than what we had previously. Those are my initial observations. Thank you.
One of the things that I conceptually, if we're taking a look at it, is these districts of influence. And we know that the way it's drawn right now, that this is a growth district, most likely for Hispanics. And do we want to protect it and allow it to grow? Or do we want to diffuse it and cut it up so that in 10 years from now, we'll review this and have to reconfigure it? So what I think this district now reflects future opportunity, in my opinion.
Madam Chair,
Yeah,
I agree conceptually with what's been said by everyone. But the key thing is that, as Mr. Shepro and I have both said, we need to see how these other districts are affected before we agree to this kind of a substantial change to 19. And I would think that Mr. Surges might have some thoughts about that. I think Mr. Tepe might have some thoughts about that. And it also might affect Mr. Kenyon's area based upon what might be drawn. And that's why I said, how quickly could we get something rather than making a decision on 19 as it's drawn today?
Well, we have to start at some starting point. We have to have, we either can go, the question was asked, a legitimate question. Do we redraw the map to represent what was? Or in version 2.3, which we can see here on the board?
Well, Madam Chair, the
Or
question
do
is,
or do we go with this district and then let Josina go forward with drawing a draft represented on this 19 as we currently see it?
Madam Chair, that was my suggestion. But again, this would drastically affect not only what is now District 19, Mr. Iqbal's district, but also Mr. Surgis's, Mr. Tepe's, and Mr. Kenyon's. And I'd like to see the rest of the map before we put that to bed. I think that would be unfair to all of us to do that.
Comment, Shepro?
Yes, and I would like, Mr. Surges is online, and I would like to hear from Mr. Surges, but go ahead.
Well, just generally, I think some of the requests for comments at this point.
Mike,
when-
please.
Shepro, oh, Mike, okay. Yeah, that's Mike over there. Okay, I'm Ken, he's Mike. Again, I guess I don't, if we don't go this way, I don't think it's like we put a sign up at the border of District 19 saying Hispanics need not move here. I don't think it's that stark a choice.
Not at all.
But I agree with virtually everything, as Vern said, that everybody's been saying. But I think to try to say that today we're going to decide on that direction, even with people who have been listening to this, this is the first time that any of us have seen this, and I think we'd like to look at a lot more detail. And I think sending her in one direction is a mistake. I would certainly be open to saying, draw out the rest of what you have here based upon the idea for 19 and see what that looks like. And at the same time, I'd like to see the alternative, because I think that's would tell me a lot about how this fits in with the rest of the picture. And I think that Mr. Tepe's identified many districts affected. If I remember the way District 14 was drawn, I think it would be affected because, again, you got this domino effect in Plato and Rutland Township. So I just think you're making a decision without most of the affected people having the ability to digest that in a short period of time. So I would urge, if we're going to move forward, that we ask her to do alternatives and show us the whole picture.
So 2 alternatives.
Yes.
Please, Mr. Surges.
Yes, ma'am.
Patiently listening. You can see your southern border of proposed new
Can
19.
she nudge that up a bit?
I'm
I
sorry.
can zoom out a bit so you can see the whole region, if that's helpful. Like that, you mean?
Yeah, a little bit more.
Like that?
You're getting there. There we go. So, Madam Chair, my comment is that this is the absolute first I've seen of this.
As all of us,
Yeah, and so I really don't have an opportunity to comment. I know that, we're being asked to do an awful lot, and I totally get that up in our region. Mr. Kopi's area had, enormous growth. I understand listening online, that we've lost growth overall in the county, so we need to shuffle the deck pretty hard. I get that. Up at the north end, my comment, and this is 100% for me personally, I live in Gilbert's, I office in East Dundee. I represent that district up and down Route 72 extremely well. I wouldn't want to monkey with that very much. And in the map that I'm looking at, although I can't, you'd have to drill down a little bit further. I'm not sure that my office is included in my district, and I would comment and fight hard for that if I could. So I mean, I'll reserve. You know, I want to be fair to everybody, and I get that, but you know, I want to. You know, I would need some time to regurgitate this a little bit and just think this through before comment.
Has Mr. Sturgis's district been drawn yet, Josina, at all?
No, no districts have been drawn outside of the voting rights district. Can I make a suggestion, maybe based off what I'm hearing? What if
And
we-
Josina, if I can, I don't
Mhm.
know how you do all this Houdini stuff, but thank you. And thank you for being patient with us.
Oh, I understand how personal this is. Change is hard no matter what, and the demographic changes require additional change in addition to this concept. So my suggestion might be, you know, with the same timeline that we're getting feedback on the voting rights districts, why don't we particularly engage Mr. Iqbal and the surrounding districts? And I would love to get feedback based off of this iteration of 19 of which pieces of this, like your office, maybe some of the western border for Mr. Tepe, you would want to keep intact in your districts, and see what we have left.
Okay. And then just my other comment, and I believe I'm hearing a theme from Mr. Tepe and Mr. Meyer and others that we've really tried to keep and Mr. Kenyon, that we're really trying to keep communities together. And I haven't looked at one of the problems, although this is not my community to represent, but Gilbert's, one of the problems Gilbert's has always had is that we are bisected by so many different natural things. So we have I-90, we have the train tracks, we have school districts, and Gilbert's just gets cut up left and right. And I would very much like to see how the remapping is helping to unify that town and help bring it together. And I've not had the opportunity to do that yet. So I mean, that's all. I appreciate, but that would be a goal of mine as well. Even though that hasn't been my district in the past, it is my town since it's why I raised my children, lived there since 1990. So I am concerned.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Sturgis. And I know Ms. Allen has a comment.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Josina, you were able to change the part of District 20 on its northern border so that you pushed its border up to the river. Do you remember doing that?
I just did that.
She just did it. Yes.
Okay, now, on the other side of the river, that's still Elgin. And that generally would have been in a District 19, Mr. Iqbal's district. And I'm wondering why you dipped Mr. Sturgis's district down to pick that up. Is that somehow connected to the VRA thinking, or I generally, board members will try to keep their communities together if they can. If I'm an Elgin board member, I'd like to represent largely Elgin, within reason. And so it's a little unusual to see Mr. Sturgis's.
Are you talking about this portion right here?
I think so. I'm not.
Are you talking about north of the river, like north of the area that I just grabbed from Ms. Strathman?
Right, north of the river is correct.
That's that little section.
So right now, that's actually not claimed. Again, I haven't drawn this out completely. So
But
this
wouldn't
could
it make-
potentially get added to 19 if
It would
some
ma-
of this needs to come off. So it's just not drawn yet.
Okay, generally, if you can keep Elgin together, we would appreciate it. It doesn't make sense for Mr. Sturgis, who represents the Dundees and some extraneous material, to dip into Elgin if we can avoid it.
Amen.
You're talking about,
That's the
you're
area
talking
right
about
there.
this chunk right here, right?
Yes.
Right. So
Those are Elgin precincts or places where Elgin people live.
there was a suggestion to draw that into 19 to keep Elgin all together.
Yes. I don't mean to butt into Mr. Iqbal's territory. It's just that I'm guessing that's what he would want.
So any shifting that we do, because we can see that it's primarily a Caucasian area because of the coloring, it's white. So that may reduce the philosophical conversation that we haven't entered into and we had that conversation in Aurora, and there wasn't a lot of pushback from it or in-depth, pushback is not the correct word, but analysis of it. But the district of influence, and which is what Josina is attempting to draw. So if I'm looking at it, it looks like a large area, and will we then potentially remove, because of population, a district of potential influence?
That is largely a light industrial area.
I was just
as
gonna
well
check the
as Judson
population
College.
here, yeah. This whole area has 1,400 people in it, which is not that many for such a large geographic area.
And with that, since it's primarily Caucasian, would those 1,400 people greatly reduce the district of influence?
It would take it from 40, what was it, 41% before to 39. So no. But it would take it over population. So we would have to carve out some of the pieces that are currently in the concept map of 19. So that might mean where Mr. Sturgis' office is, there may mean some of the western border that Mr. Tepe may want to keep. So there's flexibility.
I look forward to working with with all you folks. So thank you.
Okay. Okay, Josina, do you need anything else from us? And remember, everybody is going to be getting the maps, and we need to have all comments. I'll say it again. I don't mean to be repeating myself, but so we're all on the same page. Monday, September 13th by 3:30 p.m. And unfortunately, we do have deadlines. September 29th is the date that I'm planning on presenting the final draft map to the board for their consensus, so that in October, we can have 3 town halls to get public opinion, have plenty of time for anybody who needs to look at the map from any organization. Can have a time to take a look at the map, to give comment, to make adjustments, and have this map approved of sometime in mid to late October. Mr. Tepe?
Madam Chair, Tepe here. Is Joseph, I'm mispronouncing your name.
Josina,
Sorry for that.
He's all
we're all
excited
glazed
about
over
that.
at this point.
Is Josina going to do 2 options on District 19?
Josina, are you going to do 2 options for District 19?
No, I think what I was proposing is that we use the same timeline of next Monday, end of the day, for both Mr. Iqbal, but also all of the surrounding board members to look at this concept map and one, give overall feedback, but also give feedback if there are particular pieces of the draft concept of 19 that you're looking at now that they would want to maintain in their districts, and see what we have left. And that would give us direction as to whether this is a viable district or not. And then after that feedback, Monday evening, then we'll kind of know whether this is a viable district or not, or if we should go back to splitting it closer to the existing boundaries, and that's when I'll draw a second round map. Once all of the voting rights districts are kind of agreed upon, we have more feedback on 19, then we'll know which direction we're gonna go. But my plan is to draw one map.
Okay, do you need any confirmation from borders for District 17 and 20 outside borders? Going
I think that
north?
we're good. It sounds like Ms. Strathman and Ms. Allen are just gonna negotiate the internal border. I think Ms. Strathman was happy now with the northern border. Ms. Allen, if you have any feedback on the southern border or this western border, please let me know.
Sure, we'll be glad to. Thanks for your help.
And that's my understanding as well. So thank you.
Okay, very
Great.
good. Yes, yes, Mr. Shepro.
The trouble with that is that the northern border of 20 is also the southern border of a yet to be drawn District 21. And I guess maybe this doesn't fall into the category.
Microphone.
of constructive comments,
Microphone closer, please.
but better if I turn it on too.
Why
I
don't you-
can't
why
help
don't you-
but
Did everybody hear what Mr. Shepro had to say at the early? Why don't you just quickly repeat what you
well,
just
what
said?
I was saying is that the trouble with the external borders is that they are also the external borders of other districts which have yet to be drawn. And that's a concern. And I guess my overall observation is, and I understand there are time constraints, but we've been at this since May, have dozens of meetings, incurred all sorts of expense to the county. And now we're being told that all these decisions have to be made in 1 week. And I'm just concerned about whether we're going to really be making informed decisions with that narrow a timeline.
We're not asked, and to your point, we're not asking for feedback from all 24 board members, but we're making it very specific to discrete areas.
I'm not sure that makes me feel any better.
And there will be an opportunity for feedback on that as well. We can continue to adjust this map to your content, and it can go back and forth and back and forth. But we are on a December 30th deadline. If a map does not get approved by December 30th, you will no longer have that opportunity to approve it. And it'll go to a different committee who will not seek your input.
Well, I object to that.
Well, but not through public meeting. It'll be a different kind of approach to it, my understanding of that.
I
And we
think the
do have a-
body that's charged with that would have to hold public meetings. I'm not advocating it, I'm just saying
the election is forthcoming in January. So I think we just decided that January 13th or 14th is when you start passing your petition. So if you'd like to wait until December 30th to pass your map, we can delay your opportunity to knock on a specific district. So there has to be, and to your point, it has been massaged. We have given brand new data. The data has shown through the census that there has been some significant population shifts in Kane County. So we can't judge what happened in the past of what we're doing in the present. And because of the delay in receiving the census, which has shifted greatly because of the miscount or lack of count, or whatever you want to call it, a different count that happened in the Aurora area, we have to work efficiently and quickly and not belabor this. And we have absolutely no choice. So does everybody feel at least comfortable and excited about looking at your new district? Yeah, let's go team. And
I
do-
respectfully dissent. Chepro.
Why don't we end the pain and adjourn so Mr. Schalke can get back to Batavia,
and
where he really belongs?
He does what he does excellently.
I think, Josina, you still want to go through 23 and 24 though, quickly, correct?
Is that with this group? Or?
I believe we have Mr. Sanchez online.
And Mr. Caius.
And Mr. Caius. Mr. Caius, are you there?
He's here in spirit.
That's good enough.
Friendly spirits?
All right, like Mr. Iqbal, he's here in spirit.
I don't have his number. I would have called it.
Okay, why don't we go over quickly your two districts? So that would be 24 and 23.
So this is again, another area where we had significant growth.
I do have a question because I believe this was only going to be for Elgin, this conversation. Is there going to be any issue that we have not put this on the agenda to actually talk about Carpentersville? If that's the case,
Did you have the agenda?
Don't object.
we should table this conversation.
It's out.
You're not taking
It's not
final
on the agenda.
action, so
No.
you can do anything you want.
We're just gonna talk.
You can
We do
talk
that
and
well.
talk and talk.
It's
And
North
Caius
Elgin
is here.
anyway. Come on.
Caius is here. I just couldn't find my mute button.
Okay.
So there was significant growth in the Carpentersville area as well, particularly in terms of increase in density in this area. So you can draw a federal voting rights district as well as an influence district that I believe is about 30. Let me check again.
We
It's
do
about
have, I'm going to
30.
have to, Mr. Caius and everybody, I'm sorry. We just have Elgin area redistricting and mapping on our agenda. We have not included this area at all. So do we have, I'm asking for advice. Can we continue this conversation?
I thought I gave it.
Yes.
He gave in. Said you're just
You can
talking,
talk
you're not
about
making a
anything.
decision.
There's no
Just-
final action being taken.
Oh, no final action? Very good. All right, thank you. We can proceed. Go ahead.
All right, and so that just like the Elgin area, there is a possibility for what I would call an influence district or a community of interest district that would be almost 38% Latino. So this is the density that had to get split up. So the district is significantly different than before because if we had kept the district boundaries the same, the percentage Latino would be too high. It'd be considered packing and a violation of the Federal Voting Rights Act. So there is a loss of this area right here from Mr. Sanchez's old district, and again all the way down into Hoffman Estates, East Dundee area to add population to equal population standards and keep the percentage close to 65%. And then 23 is an influence district, so gain some of that Latino population from the old 24, draw out, try to follow as much as I could kind of the older border for Mr. Klaus, and that would be a 37.5% district. So Mr. Sanchez, we'll start with your district. Yours is the Federal Voting Rights District. Is there a piece of it that you'd like to look at first?
If you could just zoom in on the district so I could see the detail just a little bit more.
Yep. Sorry. More, or is that good?
I think that's good.
And is it okay? I'm going to give you a moment to look at that while I take a restroom break. It's been a
Sure,
long afternoon with everybody.
So while she's gone, now we're looking at the red lines or the
It's
proposed
the
line.
red
green-
lines. That's
The
correct.
green was
red
the
lines.
earlier.
There is a green overlay. It's a green and red line going up north.
Yeah. I see
Like,
that. On
I think she
23.
selected the district, so it's showing up as a reddish, red and green when she selected it, but
That's 23. That's mine.
but the border in between, yeah.
Yeah.
So 24, how far down does it go? Because we're seeing her district.
I think it goes farther south than what you're showing there in the map.
It does.
Yeah, it looks like it
indeed.
goes to the end of East Dundee from what I recall just previously seeing.
So why don't, Mr. Caius, why don't we take a look at yours since we only see a portion of 24, 23? Because we see tentative, your tentative 23.
Mhm. It looks like it shifts to the east is what it does. So that I lose
Yes, you do.
essentially the east portion of Long Meadow and along Randall Road.
Yeah.
And then pick up that whole neighborhood, which is primarily Hispanic, including the, and I keep the Lake Marion unincorporated area, I believe, as well.
Yes.
So it looks pretty clear to me.
All right, I'm back. Sorry.
Oh, that's fine. We went on to talk about 23 since we couldn't see Mr. Sanchez's entire district of 24.
Oh, sure. Do you want me to scroll down?
Yeah, just a little bit if you could. Thank you.
So you have all of East Dundee.
Certainly is quite different. I don't have any immediate remarks or comments at this time. I know Mr. Surgis had some, this takes away from his current boundaries, but I think that's probably something that we could work on outside of meeting at this point.
To shift any of those numbers now, since you have the voting rights district, Mr. Sanchez, Josina, can you comment if there's going to be any shifting of what they would have to do so that there could be, since Mr. Surgis's district is, well, at least the western border would be tentatively approved? Would there be any advice that you can give them if they're starting to look, I know dark green to dark green, lighter green to lighter green, but since this is a protected district, what can you share?
In terms of what flexibility we have for Mr. Sanchez's district?
That's correct, to share with Mr. Surgis.
Sure. So I think between Mr. Surgis and Mr. Sanchez, you can trade pretty much any of this area as long as it stays contiguous, right? So if, as long as again, it's beige for beige. And then, so all of this area could be up for grabs for kind of splitting as long as it's not too serpenty. And the border between Mr. Klaus and Mr. Sanchez, again, it would also then be kind of dark green for dark green, light green for light green to maintain the percentage. My caution would be, the more of Mr. Sanchez's old district he might want to take back here, it just creeps up into a violation of the Voting Rights Act if the percentage Latino goes too much higher, above 65%, which is where we kind of have him right now. So green for green here, beige for beige over here.
Surge's here, I understand that. I'm okay with that with Jared.
The area that is on the southwestern border of 24, which is a pale green,
Right here.
can that be touched?
Yeah, I don't think that would significantly change the percentage.
Josina, I'm looking at like where Mr. Sanchez's name is in blue, that area you talked about giving, if you wanted back. I think if you offset some of that with that lighter green down at the bottom. I mean, if you get to 67%, I don't think anybody's going to worry, 60%, 7% total pop. And then maybe transfer some of the southern back to Mr. Surges. I think some of that may work. So just be aware of that as you're going through it.
Right, so like add a little bit from here and take off some from here.
Yeah, that's if that's something that Mr. Surges and Mr. Sanchez are looking at, I think that may help.
Well, what does that do to 23 if you take that back to, take that 24? Does that move mine into Kopi's area on the west?
It probably would require you to go either a little further west or a little further south, sir.
And that shift, almost all that entire shift is a tan rather than a green, looks like.
Yeah. I mean, the reality of it is you have an influence district at, I think, 38%. I mean, as we saw earlier on looking at Elgin, if that goes down to 36, 35%, I don't think that's a huge issue, especially considering you're not a Voting Rights Act district anyway. Does that answer your question, sir?
Yeah, I guess, yeah. And
I mean, if you get a little less Latino, it's not a big deal, I think, as far as we're concerned, from a legal standpoint.
Okay, and in that, can you zoom into Park Avenue in the lower southeast corner or the mid southeast corner in Carpentersville there?
You talking about
Up to the
around
right?
here,
No, up to the right,
up in here?
east, now north. Go back up there to, there we go, to Park Avenue is just a little bit farther north. There, yeah, that's that block there. Just looking to see how that affects the, I think that's it. Yeah, the maple tree, that's all unincorporated there. So that wouldn't affect that anyway. I would still keep the Lake Marion area.
And there's no requirement, I mean, I don't think that's one block, so you could, I think those areas that you see in between you and Mr. Sanchez's district, I don't think that all has to go. You could maybe move part of it and leave part of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it doesn't make a difference. I'd like to keep the Lake Marion, which it does already anyway. It's just an unincorporated area. It has more interest as far as a board member. There are more things happening in that area. And I think I serve them pretty well. So I'm, until I look at it more, I think that's fine. From what I see, even what you have right here is fine. Although could you go back over to the west side and this close view back, clear back up over to Kimball Farms in that area? Yeah, that way. There you go.
You want me to zoom in up here?
Yeah. Just up along Sleepy Hollow. And there, yeah, see, I'd lose the Sleepy Hollow. That's fine. Yeah, I don't see anything that would be dramatically different there.
We're just here with a question for Kaios.
Yes.
Yes.
Hey, Chris, if you look at this map and you see Randall and Binney,
yeah, lower
see
edge right there.
that
Yeah.
dark green, is there really any houses there?
No.
Like, isn't that the vacant farmland? How can it be dark?
We're going to pull up the population. Can you show?
Yeah,
what
that's
the
really low
is?
population. That whole area is low population.
Like, if there's 3 houses there, I'd eat my shorts.
And those
Yeah,
3
right.
houses are primarily Hispanic then? by
Yeah, they must be.
percentage?
There's a couple of big houses in there, and that's about it, I think.
I mean, that's the old Galvin property, right?
Well, I don't know how far, I didn't go that far back there, but
Yeah, there's 2
the
people
farm.
there.
There's 2. That makes it
Yeah,
green. Got it.
yeah,
Perfect.
And they're
Yeah,
Hispanic.
you have to remember the green is based off of percentage, not
Percentage, right, yeah.
population. Yeah.
I got it. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Good
Just like
call.
this area is 3 people right here. Yeah, it can be deceptive.
Right. Now, the area there, it's right under the Carpentersville. That's Lincoln Manor. That's very Hispanic, but what's the population in there? Just out of curiosity.
770.
Yeah, so it is 770. Yeah, okay, right. Okay.
Okay. So does that help you, Mr. Surges, understand the color codes?
Got it. Yes, thank you so much.
Oh, sure, sure. Okay, so Josina, do we need to tentatively agree upon, Mr. Caius's and Mr. Sanchez's district as it relates to the western border?
At this point, I don't necessarily need agreement on the outside border because we also have 19 up in the air at this point. So I think if they want to just give as detailed a feedback on their shared border as well as their external borders, any changes they'd like by Monday, I won't be drawing the rest of the county until after that because we'll still need feedback on 19. So this whole area is a little bit in flux, so it's fine.
Okay, very good. All right. Are there any other questions or comments? If not, may I have a motion to end this wonderful meeting?
Kenyon moves to end the wonderful meeting and go on the trail.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Franz, may I have an aye?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? The
Mrs.
meeting is
Allen?
over. Thank you.